Hi, my name's Matt and I'd like to welcome you to this Zinniac video on robotic process automation. It's part of our ITIL 4 Create, Deliver and Support course. Robotic process automation, or RPA, or often just referred to as robotics, is where we use software robots or bots to automate repetitive and mundane tasks. And the key thing to remember here is when we're talking about robotics in this sense, it is software replacing the human brain rather than hardware replacing human muscle. And if you think about robotics, we've had robots replacing human muscle for many years, thousands of years. So certainly modern robots like washing machines and dishwashers and vacuum cleaners replace human muscle, because if we didn't have them, we'd be using our muscles to do the cleaning. They're relatively modern, but you can go back to things like windmills, where we use a windmill to do something that, yeah, okay, previously maybe we'd use horses, other animals to do that, but if you go back far enough, humans would have done the activity themselves, so it's replacing muscle. What we're talking about here is software replacing the human brain, but initially those repetitive and mundane tasks, so the sort of thing where you go, you know, down, delete, down, delete, down, delete, down, delete, down, delete, that type of activity, just very repetitive, requires very little intelligence really, but just a little bit, but those types of tasks. It's typically low cost and easy to implement, and it doesn't require redevelopment of existing systems. So it's leaving the existing system as is and replacing a human being interacting with that system with software. So it doesn't require complex integration. It enables resources to be deployed on higher value activities, i.e. human resources to go and do something more valuable than just a basic repetitive task. It helps streamline business operations. It can reduce staffing costs because we don't have staff doing those repetitive, mundane tasks. My first roll out of university, I worked for Marconi Radar Systems Limited, and there was a team of ladies there who did data entry, but it was numerical data entry. So they weren't even typing, they weren't even using the QWERTY keyboard, they were just using the 0 to 9 numerical keyboard in one hand, and all they did all day, every day, was type in numbers. So they just type in a number, hit return, type in a number, hit return, type in a number, hit return. That's all they did. And obviously it was a job for them and they earned money and that was good. But I'm sure they would have rather been doing something more interesting and stimulating. And certainly that's the sort of thing we'd be looking to automate. And it can reduce errors, because clearly if human beings, if you start to become bored, then you start to lose focus and you can introduce more errors. And automobile manufacturers found that. So on the production line, one of the things they found was that you give somebody a job on a production line and they go through a learning curve where they become more efficient and they reach peak efficiency, and they maintain peak efficiency for a period of time, but then it starts to dip. Their efficiency starts to wane, and their efficiency starts to wane when they get bored. So when they get to that unconscious competence, they're unconscious. They are competent, but they're not really thinking about it, and they're just doing it. And because they've lost focus, every now and again, if something goes wrong, they don't react to it because they're just on to the next one, and the quality goes down. So what motor manufacturers, other manufacturers do now is they move people around the production line to keep them engaged, to keep them interested. It's better for the employees, that it's a more interesting job, but also it's better for the company because it improves quality. But the other way too is just to replace humans altogether, and replace them with software, with robots, and then we get that high level of consistency, reliability, and predictable processes because of the reduced errors, which also increases revenue. It provides better customer service, and obviously if we provide better customer service, we're likely to get greater customer retention. Where is RPA used? Process types where RPA can yield the most benefit: high volume, and that's clearly there is a cost. It's generally low cost, but there is a cost in terms of putting RPA in. In DevOps, they talk about everything in code. If you do it once, just do it. If you're going to do it twice, write some code to do it. But clearly, the more times you're going to do it, if you're only going to do it twice, then the cost of the coding is only halved because you get to use it twice. If you're going to do it 2 million times, then the cost of coding is distributed amongst 2 million occurrences. So the higher the volume, the greater the likely benefit. Processes which are error prone, where we need a consistency, so we reduce the number of errors. Processes that are sensitive to fault, so where the impact of a fault is great, so we really want to reduce that risk. If it's rules-based, because if it's rules-based, we can follow the rules, we can write the software to follow the rules. That's generally a very easy piece of software to write. I remember writing a statutory maternity pay system where I got a little leaflet from the government telling me how to calculate the rules for calculating maternity pay, and it was really just following those rules. Very simple and straightforward. Anybody who's written or developed software to play a game, you know, a physical game, whether it's chess or drafts or Monopoly or whatever it might be, again, that's relatively simple coding because you've got the rules and you've just got to follow the rules. You know what the rules are. And where it doesn't require complex decision making, so obviously if it requires complex decision making, the software becomes more complex, the software is going to cost more, and then potentially the cost benefit analysis changes and the benefit might not be as great. We do need to be careful. RPA, robotic process automation, can be fragile. So because we're not changing the system, we're just interfacing with the system and interacting as the human would. If that system changes, then the RPA can stop working. And again, I've got a personal example where in order to order exam codes from PeopleCert, I need to go in, I'll log it, I've got username and password, obviously log into the PeopleCert passport system and then select the exam, ITIL Foundation or Managing Professional, Transition or High Velocity IT, whatever it might be, and then select the language and then select whether it's take 2 or not, select the trainer, which would be me, and finally enter the person who's going to take the exam, so their name and email address. But that interface has changed, so it's a great candidate, and I have thought about automating it, writing some software to do that for me, so when an order comes in, it just automatically orders the exam voucher. But the problem is they changed that system. So when they brought in take 2, that put in another step, and it wasn't just clicking on take 2 or not. When you click on take 2, you get a little pop-up saying, are you sure? Yeah, I'm sure. That's why I clicked on it. And that makes it more difficult. So you could have written some software and it works, and then it changes, and if you don't know it's changed or you're not sure exactly when it's going to change, you've got to rewrite the software. So it can be fragile in that way. More sophisticated RPA tools incorporate machine learning and artificial intelligence, so they're more able to deal with those types of changes. So maybe that was quite a big change. Other little changes, maybe the change from Prince2 2017 to Prince2 6th edition, maybe the machine learning could have dealt with that change in terms of selecting the right software. RPA technologies. Process automation. So this focuses on automating tasks that are dependent on structured data. So for instance, spreadsheet macros. Enhanced and intelligent process automation. This works with unstructured data such as emails or documents. And again, I've got a good example. I use a product now called HubDocs. I used to use a product called Receipt Bank. They basically do the same thing. Is when people send me an invoice for exam vouchers, the software scans that invoice and picks out the date and the amount and what it's for and puts it into my accounting system so that I know I've got to pay them, and it puts the date in, so I pay them at the appropriate time. And I use it as well on my mobile phone. I've got an app on my mobile phone that does the same thing. So if I spend some money, I'm out delivering training and I go for lunch and I want to claim it back, then I can get the receipt and just take a photograph of it, and the system will scan it. It'll work out where I bought lunch. It'll put the vendor in and the amount and the VAT, and it picks it all out and does it automatically, and it saves me a lot of time, believe you me. Cognitive platforms. These understand customers' queries and can perform tasks which previously required human intervention. So I'm pretty sure you will have come across these. The two most common are you phone a help desk and you get through to a robot and it'll say things like, in your own words, tell us what your problem is, and you try and tell them in it, oh, so what your problem is this, right, we'll put you through to the right people. And the other one is on chat. So a lot of chat now is, the initial chat is RPA. You go in and say, this is my problem, and it'll work out what your problem is. It'll maybe send you some links. Oh, you might want to look at this. You might want to look at, did they help you? No. Okay, well, just hang on and a human's coming. But it gives you that initial interaction, and that can work really well with IT service management. Iterative and incremental automation. So I've been recommending to people for several years now. Yes, automation, we want to move to it. We want to optimize and automate. That's a key ITIL 4 principle, and automation is coming in the, so if the last 10 to 20 years have been a great move towards mobility and access, the Martini access anytime, any place, anywhere, the next 10, 20, maybe more years is going to be automation. So we definitely want to automate, but do it in stages, iteratively and incrementally. Workflow, if you haven't implemented workflow, that's a great place to start. But here on the slide, you can see the iterative and incremental approach. So the top line, we start off with the manual process, and that could be a manual process supported by workflow. And supporting it by workflow, mapping that manual process really lets us see which bits are open to automation. The middle line, robotic process automation, we've replaced 2 manual steps with a bot, with software. And then in the third level, we've got cognitive robotic process automation, where we've actually taken a step out. So we've taken out a manager reviews the order. We're trusting the software to do that. So it's going straight from the shop inventory system to the warehouse inventory system. We've taken out a step. We don't need it anymore. And we've also got now a third automated system, which is picking as well. So it's taking some of that labor as well. So it's right across. So it's both replacing human intelligence and human muscle, but it's that gradual, iterative and incremental approach. Again, that is definitely the preferred way to do it, rather than going for a big bang approach. There are several benefits of a successful robotic process automation program, including lower labor costs. So after the robots are deployed, the only costs are related to servicing and maintaining the software, and we can remove those jobs or redeploy those people, hopefully, into other more fulfilling roles. Increase throughput. So yeah, definitely, software can do things much quicker and much faster. And we've seen that throughout history. When we automate things, we gain greater throughput and increased accuracy. Robots can achieve near perfect accuracy. Yeah, they do the same thing they do what we tell them. So if we tell them to do the wrong thing, they'll do the wrong thing. But if we tell them to do the right thing, they will do it right every time at a high speed and for forever, basically. So great benefits there. There are risks though. So there is a risk of RPA becoming the legacy application of the future. That is that we get so tied in to the RPA that we lose that agility that we want. So we don't want to lose that agility. And again, if you're using an old system and you write RPA to interface with it, then you might get tied into that solution and it might become, oh, we can't change that because we'd have to change this and this and this and it's too costly. So you do want to avoid that technical debt. So RPA needs proper planning, analysis, design and governance processes, and including the following considerations. So garbage in, garbage out. Yeah, so I kind of referred to that. If we tell the robot to do the wrong thing, it will do the wrong thing very efficiently and effectively, but we need to make sure we're telling it to do the right thing. So using robots particularly to run key processes is a challenge if there are no standard processes to follow. So we might need to create those standard processes in the first instance, maybe use workflow to have the humans performing them, make sure it's right, the optimize bit, so in terms of optimize and automate, optimize first and then automate. Again, you don't want to be automating a unoptimized, inefficient process. Use the ITIL guiding principles, particularly optimize and automate, which I just mentioned. Also, keep it simple and practical. Identify areas which have the most potential for automation and prioritize automation accordingly. And again, that's something that runs right through ITIL all the time. And Agile is prioritization. Prioritize, make conscious decisions about where your priorities are. And if everything's a priority, you haven't done that. And it's really important that you do. Develop the right skills in the right people. Again, that's a common theme. For example, how to arrange and use RPA efficiently and effectively. Determine realistic return on investment expectations. So it's not a magic wand. RPA is not a magic wand. Agile isn't a magic wand. ITIL isn't a magic wand. Have realistic expectations, and you're far more likely to get success then. Enable strong collaboration between the business and IT, because ultimately what we're trying to do is deliver value to the business. So we need to understand how the business assesses value and make sure that's what it's delivering, that we're not just automating for the sake of it, or automating because we can. Yeah, oh, this will be fun, we can automate this. Oh yeah, and I've been guilty of that on occasion, doing something because I can, because it's quite fun. And if I do it at home in my, private life, as it were, I'll just write a little bit of software, see if I can get this to work. Then that's fine. But in business, we need to make sure we're delivering value to the customer. Execute automation. Treat automation as a roadmap with short iterations. So again, that iterative and incremental delivery. So that brings us to the end of this video on robotic process automation. I hope you've enjoyed it and found it valuable. Please join me in our next ITIL 4 video for Create, Deliver and Support on artificial intelligence. Until you see me again, have a great day.